What is the worst sexual experience you've had? I was going through a very rough time after a divorce and fell off the rails a bit. I had been chatting to this guy online and we planned to have sex lol. But when he rocked up I didn't feel that attracted to him and he was not as good looking as his pictures, but I had a few drinks and thought let me just go through with it. He had the cheapest condoms and had a problem keeping an erection. I think the whole thing lasted about 30 seconds, it was just terrible and awkward. He left like 5 minutes later, and it was an awkward goodbye. Anyways, a few days later I had the most intense burning sensation. I could barely walk. I was convinced I had herpes or some bad STD, and had to go to a doctor. Anyway, turns out it was just a yeast infection, probably from the change in pH balance from the sex. Overall, the entire experience was terrible and not worth it, lol. I was helping my girlfriend undress and hit her in the mouth by accident. Mood ruined as expected. A guy told me he could channel energy through his tongue. Worst head I've ever had in my life? That would be the first blowjob I ever received. Ended up thrusting my D a bit forward, enthusiasm I guess, triggering my girlfriend's gag reflex and getting projectile vomited on. Not a great start. He said my labia looked weird. Shockwave of insecurity that has followed me 10 plus years despite going to a gyno about it, and she informed me that it was absolutely normal. Edit. I did not expect this to blow up as much as it did. Wow. Girl fainted on my dick, and her head was a little heavy. Took me about 4 painful minutes to remove myself, while also operating a phone and thinking about whether or not to give CPR. Apparently she had some form of vertigo, and faints on sound snaps, which happened when I spanked her ass, but did not know about. I met up with a guy, older than me. He took me back to his house, his mom's house. We did the deed, then I see red and blue lights on the wall through the window. The university police came to find me. I lost my phone outside my dorm, and when they couldn't find me they called my parents, who called my aunt who worked for the university. She had the university police track his hash. I used to call my phone to try to locate it. Was taken back to the PD where my aunt was waiting for me around midnight. It was not a good night. Girl I was dating was epileptic and told me she occasionally had seizures. About 3 weeks into dating we went out for dinner and she had 2 glasses of wine, and neglected to inform me that alcohol increased her risk of having a seizure. About an hour later we ended up having sex in my car. So, here is where things got kinda weird. To backtrack and add some context. We had been having a lot of sex in the first few weeks we dated, and I noticed she would get very heady when she came. Like, she almost seemed high. She would fumble her words and kinda zone out, staring off into space mid-sex, and after we would finish she would just sit there smiling and zoned out and just didn't seem interested in conversation. Again, if I didn't know any better I would think she was high. I didn't mind because I found it an ego boost to think damn she is exhausted from how much I made her come. I'm a fucking ace. But I now know that I'm pretty sure it was because she was on the verge of seizures, lol. And I know that now because, jumping forward again to that night with the wine. Things went the same as always. We had sex, she got heady/high/loopy, but this time was a lot more intense than normal. She wasn't just not in the mood for talking, she was just basically unresponsive. I would look straight at her and ask her a question and she would just stare blankly, which started to freak me out. After about 2 to 3 minutes of her being completely zoned out, the tremors started. Her hands started shaking violently and her legs were twitching, but thankfully the movements were small enough that I was able to just lay her head on my shoulder/chest and just waited it out. I just kind of pet her hair and kept saying it's okay. I'm right here. As she trembled. It lasted about 5 minutes or so. Then it took her about 15 more minutes to actually come back to reality. It was kind of freaky, but honestly, all things considered, it wasn't an overly horrible experience. Objectively though, that was probably the worst I have had. We still dated for a few weeks after that, but eventually it turned out I was a rebound and I'm pretty sure she ended things to get back with her ex. I still think about her often lol. Still have a thing for her. Sucks that it ended, but it was fun while it lasted. Drunken college one night stand. He had a micropenis. I didn't judge and continued. The condom I had was too big, he put it on himself. On top, I could barely feel him inside me. After he was done, 1 min or so, the condom was inside my vagina. I pulled it out. He made a self-deprecating joke about his small dick. Had to take Plan B in the morning. Probably the time my ex-wife drunkenly insulted and berated me for not wanting to do anal. Especially being impromptu, no preparation, and the first time doing it. I was sucking a guy's dick and he was quite a bit bigger than anyone I'd worked on before. I'm into aggressive partners, so we agreed he could be a bit forceful. Mistake. I threw up. He finished after about 30 seconds, tried 3 more thrusts, because I was nowhere close, complained, I can't keep going forever, and told me he didn't mind if I finished myself off. Also gave me chlamydia, and was the single most embarrassing person I'd ever been near. His roommate's dog came in while I was still undressed. I tried to get her to leave, and he scolded me that she's allowed to be in here. ETA, forgot to add I had to check in with him 5 times, because he still wasn't in my vagina yet. I don't know what he thought he was doing. College night out. One of the girls in the class says she's always fancied me and would love to fuck my brains out. I thought she was just playing around and mumbled something about I only do anal on Wednesdays. She for some reason loved this idea, and back to her place we went. So there we are, banging away as you do. And she says, all intense like, stick it in my ass. She gets up, jumps onto all 4s, spits into her hand and rubs it into her asshole and fingers herself a couple of times. So fuck it, in I go. And she starts screaming, in a good way. Oh, you fucking big bastard. She keeps saying. I'm not, I'm average as fuck. And then she starts rubbing her clit while taking it in the ass. A couple of minutes later she starts screaming that she coming, and while she's coming has the biggest and longest fanny fart I have ever heard, lol. So now, she's all about me coming. And she starts talking dirty. Fuck me, daddy. That sort of thing, and then she says the thing that completely ruins the whole night. Shoot your muck into me. I was just so disgusted I went limp almost straight away. So I pull out thinking I'm just going to make my excuses and go. Nope. She pushes me down and starts sucking my cock to get it hard again. I look down and she's really going to town on the wee fella. And then I see it. It's there, it's not there, it's there, it's not there. A big piece of shit on my dick, and she keeps taking it into her mouth. Am I of course disgusted again, but I also feel really bad for her. Should I tell her? Should I just quickly go to the bathroom like it never happened? Plan B doesn't work, as she won't let me up. So I have to tell her Terry's shit on my dick and you keep sucking it. And do you know what she does? Scoops it off with her finger, flicks it, and then goes right back to sucking my cock. That was the end of my erection for quite some time. So I make my excuses and pull my clothes on. I'm just about to head out when the door to her bedroom opens and her mother walks in. Just wondered if you were wanting a cup of tea or anything? That whole fucking time she's screaming about getting fucked in the arse and her mother is in the living room listening to it all. I thought she had an empty, so I never thought anything of it. Nope. Mother and father sitting in the living room listening to their daughter shouting fuck my ass, daddy. And then coming into the room like it was the nothing. College was awkward as fuck after that, lol. My foreskin ripped open during my first time. So I had a girl completely dead fish. She wouldn't move her body at all, full on dead weight. I was trying to get into missionary and her legs were so heavy. I said, you want to help a little? She replied, what do you mean? I didn't explain, should have. Now in hindsight, I was a bit in disbelief and also frustrated. She wouldn't lift herself or move herself to assist at all. She kept her legs completely straight for missionary. I barely got inside and it kept slipping out. I started apologizing, so embarrassing I know. I finally ended up finishing and neither of us had been satisfied. I occasionally think about how her version of events might be and how unsatisfied she was. You're always a villain in someone's story and in others you're a terrible lover. Edit. Many mentioning consent. She was using me as a rebound. It was made clear she only wanted to have sex and nothing else. I performed 15 to 20 minutes of oral on her, and when making out she seemed into it and wasn't just lying there. It was only once the final act, for lack of a better term, was about to happen, that's when she went total dead weight. When I asked, "You want to help a little?" And she replied, "What do you mean?" Between her tone and look on her face there were no signs of discomfort, confusion, or disinterest. If she'd have visibly appeared uncomfortable in any way, I would have stopped or asked if everything was okay. She wasn't looking away or drifting off. She still appeared into it but simply wouldn't assist in moving her body at all. My roommate was in a dry spell but was really interested in a woman we would see at the bar. She was always with her roommate, who was very protective and wouldn't let her friends stay out past 12 a.m. The guardian roommate also could have been a goblin. So, I decided to flirt with her to keep them out later and let my roomie have a chance. It worked, and they went home together. But then the great goblin decided I should come home with her. Thinking that a no would mean she gets home angry and kills whatever my roomie had going, I decided to go along. I mean, I never said no, but I didn't enjoy any part of that experience. She poured wax on my and herself, tried to convince me to go bareback, and then said I wasn't big enough to get her off and had me use a baseball bat-sized tentacle toy on her. A female stranger that I had met online for a hookup neglected to inform me that she had a problem with flatulence when she had an orgasm. The first one came as I was giving her oral. She ripped a massive fart pretty much directly into my mouth. It was horrible. Being a gentleman, I pressed on. For the next hour or so, I got my balls farted on no less than 10 times. We didn't see each other again.